Good day everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Mariet, also known as die Boervrou, and in this video I am going to show you exactly how I knit the Fairy Lily sweater. So this is my first ever sweater design, and if you're interested in a little vloggy footage, you can check out this video up here of the video on how I designed this sweater. Right. Let's get into this tutorial and let me show you how to knit this sweater. To cast on the neckline, I'm going to use my 4.5mm Chigu needles with the shorty tips and the 20cm or 8-inch cable. It just works a little bit easier for me, but of course you can do this on magic loop if you choose to. So I'm going to cast on the third size, and I'm going to cast on 91 stitches with the long tail cast on, and then join to work in the round. I've cast on 91 stitches, and then we are going to join this in the round. To join the work in the round, I'm going to slip the last stitch that I cast on onto the needle on the left side so that I can knit these two together. So we are going to place a beginning of round marker, and then we're going to start knitting the ribbing with knit through the back loop, and pull one, knit one through the back loop, and pull one. So we're just going to knit the whole around in knit one through the back loop and pull one to the end of this round. You'll see that these stitches is still a little bit loose. It's absolutely acceptable, and then just continue to knit the ribbing as indicated in the pattern for the amount of rows that is needed. Alrighty, I have now finished the ribbing for the sweater. I will now be starting the short rows. I'm using German short rows in my patterns. I am going to start the short rows now, and as I mentioned, I'm using German short rows, so I will be showing you how I do that. So you just knit to the amount of stitches specified in the pattern, and then my pattern will have the words GSR on it, and that means perform German short row. So on the front of the work, this is the front facing me, you will knit the next stitch, turn the work, slip the last stitch that you made over purlwise to your right hand needle, and then pull the working yarn back so that you pull that 2 legs up onto your needle, ready to pull back. On the wrong side, you will then pull to the right amount of stitches. So first we will just pull to the marker, slip the marker, pull to the amount of stitches, which is in my case 6. One more, and then it says perform German short row. So now we are on the back, so I will pull the next stitch, turn the work, with yarn in front, slip the stitch to the right hand needle, and I will again pull this yarn tightly to bring the 2 legs onto the needle, and then I'm ready to knit back again. So I will knit the first stitch and hold that tension for the German short row stitch. Now if you're afraid that you might lose these stitches and not know where to resolve, you can add a bulb marker to the 2-legged stitch if you like this, and then when you get to it, you will know this is the one that you need to resolve by knitting through both legs. So then we're just going to continue with the next instructions of the short rows, and I will show you how to resolve the stitch, meaning how to knit into both legs. So we will be knitting to the next GSR. So the pattern suggests knit to German short row stitch of the previous row, and this is the German short row stitch, and when you're on the right side it will say knit German short row stitch. So you just knit through both of the legs to resolve the stitch and carry on with the instructions. And on the wrong side we will also have to resolve the stitch, in this case the one that we marked with the yellow bulb marker. Right, so here you can see is the bulb marker where we marked this stitch. So the instructions will again say pull to the German short row stitch from the previous row. You pull to the stitch and then pull German short row stitch. So to do that, you'll just simply put your needle in underneath both legs and pull the stitch. And then remember to remove the bulb marker from the stitch, and that is basically it. You just continue with the instructions. In between the lace sections there is increase rounds, and straight after the short row shaping there is also a set of increases. All the sizes increases here except for size 1. All of that is noted in the pattern, and for the size I am making, I'm going to do 10 increases now, and I'm going to knit 9, and I'm then going to do a make one left. To do a make one left, you take your left tip, pick up the bar in between the two stitches from front to back, and then knit the picked up stitch through the back leg like that. So that is how you do a make one left. And then I'm just going to continue until I reach the beginning of round, and then I should have 10 more stitches on my needle. Right, so that is one increase. So I'm going to do this 9 more times, and then I'll meet you back here to explain the rest. After the yoke increases, we're going to do one round of plain knitting. The lace is charted as well as written out with written instructions in the pattern, so you can choose to do either one of the two. The way we are doing lace in this pattern is only with knit two together yarn overs and yarn over SSK stitches. So I will just quickly show you how to do those stitches, and then you can just follow the instructions as written in the pattern. So when we do a knit two together yarn over stitch for your lace patterning, you will first do the knit two together. So you will knit 2 stitches together like this, which gives you a 1 stitch less in your amount of stitches. And to make sure that you have a nice crisp hole and have the stitch back, you just do a yarn over and knit the amount of stitches as said in the pattern. So there you will have a nice beautiful lace hole. The other way we will do lace patterning in this pattern is by using yarn overs and SSK, which is slip slip knit. In the event of doing the SSK, your yarn over will be first. So you will first yarn over, slip 1 stitch knitwise, slip another stitch knitwise, and put them back on the left needle and knit them through the back legs. And that will also give you a yarn over nice lace hole there. And that is the 2 methods that we will be using in this pattern to make the lace patterning. Another tip that I can give you for knitting lace work is to divide your stitches by lace chart repeats. So after every chart repeat, add a little stitch marker to your work so that you know every time that you knit the chart, you should end up at the end of a stitch marker. And this is also a technique that I explain and show in this pattern. Now that we have finished the yoke, we are going to divide for the raglan increases. So you will need 4 little stitch markers for this part, and let's do it. So for the size that I'm knitting, size 3, I'm going to knit the correct amount of stitches for my size. Right, so I am at 42 stitches, which is the correct amount of stitches for my size. Then we are going to place a marker, and then you're going to knit the next amount of stitches in the pattern. Right, place another marker, and now you have your sleeve stitches. Okay, back at the beginning of round, and that is the setup round for the raglan increases. Alright, so that is divided. Now we have divided the yoke into raglan increases, or into a raglan where we're going to increase just a little bit before splitting the sleeves and body stitches. Right, so round one will be a increase round. So we are going to knit until we have one stitch left before the first marker. Right, so one stitch before we reach the marker, you will make one right, knit one, slip the marker, knit one, make one left, and knit to the next marker, and we are just going to repeat that. Make one right, knit one, slip the marker, knit one, make one left. And we're going to repeat that for all 4 markers that we placed until we are back at the beginning of round. So the next round is going to be a plain knit round, and you will repeat rounds 1 and 2 for the amount of times that's given on for your size in the pattern. So what you can do to remember how many times you have already made an increase is you can just take a normal little bulb marker and put it on the stitches of where you made the increase, and that will mark and show you how many times you've increased. Another tip that I would like to share with you that I discovered recently is when you do an increase round and a plain knit round for a few times, I like to add a bulb marker to my beginning of round marker. So note the word add. So every time I come around and slip my beginning of round marker, when I do a plain knit round, I add the stitch marker to the needle with the beginning of round marker. After that round, when I know I'm doing an increase round, I put the added bulb marker onto the needle instead of the beginning of round marker. So if I mid-row have to put down the knitting quickly, when I pick it up and I see I'm on the added bulb marker, I know I'm adding stitches in the round. And I think that is a great tip, and it works perfectly for me, and I hope that that will help you as well. So I'm doing a plain knit round, so I've added the beginning of round marker to my knitting, and I will knit round 2 now. Right, here you can see what I meant with the stitch marker, bulb marker situation. My next round is going to have increases where I'm going to add stitches to my knitting. So I'm going to put the added bulb marker on my needle as a beginning of round marker and just knit away. So if for instance I have to go do something quickly and I drop down the knitting and I come back and pick it up, I can just immediately see I'm on the added bulb marker, so I am adding stitches to my work. And that works great for me because I have to drop my knitting all the time, and then I have to try and figure out, did I now do a knit round or did I now do an increase round before I left my needles? After you have knit the raglan increases, we are going to split the sleeve and body stitches. You can use some leftover yarn to keep your sleeve stitches on hold, or stitch holders, or you can use barber cords like I'm going to do here. So in the pattern I give the exact amount of stitches that you need to knit for the back, and then how many stitches you need to put on hold for the sleeves. It should be stitch counts from markers to markers. So for the size I am making, I'm going to knit 46 stitches from my beginning of round marker. Right, so that is the stitches of the back. Then I'll remove this marker and I will put all of the sleeve stitches on hold. So this is all my sleeve stitches until this marker. So you can just check your stitch counts and make sure that it lines up with the amounts of stitches in the pattern for the size that you're knitting. Right. So that is my sleeve stitches. On hold. Then with the back loop cast on, you're going to cast on the stitches for under the arm. So the back loop cast on, if you're not familiar, you just wrap the yarn around your thumb like that and you cast on a stitch. Don't pull it too tight because you will battle to knit into it the next round. So cast on the amount of stitches that is called for in the pattern for the size you are knitting. Place a new beginning of round marker and cast on the rest of the stitches. Then knit the stitches of the front. Right, so that is my front, and then I'm going to put the sleeve stitches on hold again on the second cord. Right. There we go. And then we are going to do another back loop cast on and just check the amount of stitches that you need to cast on for your size. I'm doing 8. Right, and then knit the last stitches to your previous beginning of round marker. Right, so this is the old beginning of round marker, so we will remove that one and then knit to your next beginning of round marker underneath the arm. This is the cast on stitches. You can see here, if you do these stitches very tightly, you might really battle to get into them. Alright, that is the body and sleeve stitches split. So I like to knit the next round, especially when using hand-dyed yarns. I will knit the next round all around until I'm back at this beginning of marker, and I will then immediately start alternating yarns. So this is what I have left of my first yarn cake. So I will not use all of this yarn on the body. I will try and take anything from 5 to 10 grams per sleeve out of this. So I will weigh this and see how much I have, and make sure that I have a little bit to alternate for the body and keep a little bit for the sleeves, so that I have some of the yarn that is knit with here to start alternating my sleeves. So I will keep a little bit of this for that purpose. But if I finish this round, my next round, I will immediately start to alternate colors, and my next yarn cake is already caked up and ready to go. So now we are going to knit the body, and that is going to take a little bit of time. Now that I have finished the body, I'm going to start knitting the sleeves, and remember to check your stitch and row gauge to make sure you still get gauge when you start knitting your sleeves. So for knitting the sleeves, I'm going to use the 4.5mm shorty tips that I have, and the 20cm or 8-inch cable that I have for knitting the sleeves. You can of course knit the sleeves as you prefer, on DPNs, on magic loop. It really does not matter as long as you get gauge. So what I like to do is to take all of these stitches and put them straight on my needle before I start. So I will take them off the barber cords and slip them onto my needle. Alrighty, all the sleeves are back on the needle. I have kept a little bit of the yarn from my yoke, meaning the exact same ball as that I knit the sleeve stitches from, and I split it into two little cakes. I think both of them is about 10 grams that I had left, so it's 10 grams for the one and 10 for the other. And I'm going to alternate yarns when knitting, but I'm going to start with the same yarn cake that I knit my yoke with. So to start knitting the sleeves, we're going to pick up stitches underneath the arm. So for the size I'm knitting, I am going to pick up 5 stitches underneath each arm, and I have only cast on 8 stitches, so I have 8 here, and I'm going to pick up 1 stitch extra in the one side and 1 stitch extra on the other side. So I like to pick up my stitches through the actual knit stitch. You can see that little bump where you started knitting down, so I'd put my needle in there and pick up the stitch like that. So I will start by picking up inside that stitch right there, put my needle through and pick up 1, 2, 3, I need to pick up one more for my size. But now, as you can see here, this strand is very stretched out. So I would pick up that stitch there. You can see it is attached to the stitch on the needle. And then I also like to pick up from this stitch underneath that one, so that it helps me to close up the hole. So I will pick up this stitch and put it on my needle like that. And I would also pick up the strand from the stitch beneath it and put those two on my needle and knit both of them together to help close up any holes. There is going to be a tail here that you can use to close up holes if you have any, but I like to pick up extra stitches and knit through two of them, two strands, to help me close up any holes that I might have. Alright, and then you will just knit the stitches that you already have on your needle until you get to the end of all the stitches. So I finished the last stitch that I just knit was that one, so I'll pick up a strand from that stitch and the one below to help me to close the hole, but I'm not going to pick up the one in here, the first one. I will pick it up in the corner there, as you can see there, and I will also pick up the strand from the stitch below that one, just like I did on the other side, and I will knit them together, and by doing that I have picked up one stitch already. And then I will pick up the 4 stitches from the bottom here. 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we will place a beginning of round marker for the sleeves. And just before I start alternating yarns on the sleeve, I will just knit another round in this first yarn just to secure my stitches. And then remember to count your stitches after you picked up the stitches underneath the arm to make sure that you have the correct sleeve stitch counts as given in the pattern for the size that you are knitting. I've now done 2 rounds and I will now start alternating yarns on the sleeve. So I will just leave my working yarn in front and I will start knitting with another strand of yarn so that I can alternate every row. And that is what I will just keep doing. So now I have 2 strands here to make sure that my corners are nice and neat. That is basically all I do. So now I will just knit the sleeves according to the pattern instructions. And that is basically it. So as you can see, I have left my working yarn and I started working with the new yarn, and then I will just keep alternating until I reach the end of my sleeves. Right, I just finished the sleeves. Time to block this sweater. Right, so after the garment was in the water, I just rinsed it out and pushed out as much water as possible without wringing it. The next step is to take a towel like that, put the sweater on top, try not to pull on it while it's heavy, and then roll it up and then just push. Don't ever wring. Now that most of the water is out of the garment, you'll feel that it's much lighter. And then just lay it out to dry. And just check the dimensions. So like this sweater has got a dimension of more or less 112 centimeters. So that gives me about 56 centimeters. And if I look at this, it's laying out at 58. So what I like to do is just smoosh it a little bit until it is in place. You can pin it out if you like, but it's really not necessary. If you do pin, do not pin on the edges because it will make little points. Pin it on the inside like there if you really want to pin it. For the sleeves, I do the same thing. I check the width of the sleeves and just make sure that I lay it out to the width that it should be and smoosh it up if it is too long. And then a last thing on blocking is don't judge the fabric before it is completely dried, because it does shrink up a little bit again when it is completely dry. Right, so this is the sweater all blocked, and I'm going to stand back so that you can most probably see what it looks like. The color may change a little bit because of lighting, but nevertheless you can still see the sweater. So this is the sweater after it has been blocked. And as you hopefully can see, I have beautiful drape and a little bit of positive ease, and my sleeves are not too tight. I really did not want too tight sleeves for this project. So this is the long sleeve version with the lace at the end, and I really love it. So I hope you found this video interesting and that this helped you in knitting your own Fairy Lily sweater. All of the details of the pattern is linked down below this video, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!